What stranger will you never forget? When I was in elementary school, I fell through ice. A man who was walking his dog saw me fall and rushed to the shore. I frantically swam back to the shore. I was only about 5 meters into the pond, so it wasn't a long way, but it took some with soaked winter clothes. When I reached the shore, the man pulled me up by my jacket. It would have been difficult to get up, as there was a steep incline. I didn't thank him, because I was in shock, but I bet he knows I was grateful, and 20 years later I still hope I would had thanked him. I skidded out on black ice like 15 years ago, and my car spun several times, then slammed into a guardrail snowbank facing traffic in the opposite way. A man who was walking to the train ran over, pushed me out of a snow embankment, and then pushed my car into a parking lot. He got me out of the car and made sure I didn't have a horrible concussion, and then waited for me to call my dad. I lived close, so he listened to me confirm my dad was like 3 minutes away, and then took off running to catch his train. There was so much black ice and cars were sliding all over. He very easily could have saved my life. I wouldn't be able to pick him out of a lineup today, but I will never ever forget his kindness. The gentleman in a business suit handing me his umbrella in the middle of a downpour. We just were passing each other on the sidewalk, our eyes met, and he just handed over the umbrella with a "here ya go." Never saw him ago. I had a similar encounter. When my oldest was a toddler, he went to daycare in the downtown area of our city. We took the bus, then the subway, and then walked to daycare. Didn't have a car, then I'd get back on the subway for a few stops to go to work. One afternoon, it was pouring. I'm by myself, holding a 2-year-old, his backpack, my work bag, and trying to book it 4 city blocks to the subway station. No hands left for an umbrella. A businessman, probably a high-priced lawyer, based on the area, walked us all the way to the entrance of the subway station, holding an umbrella over us the whole time. I encountered a lot of nastiness commuting with a kid that year, but we also met with random kindness from strangers too. I used to walk to school at around 7:30 a.m. every morning during high school. Each morning through 9th and 10th grade, I used to pass an old Asian man in a sweater and sweatpants. He used to jog every morning, and we would always briefly see each other at the exact same time. Eventually we were familiar with each other, and we would exchange good mornings and a smile, and carry on. The last time I saw him was at a supermarket, and it had been quite a while since I had seen him during my walks to school. When we made eye contact, he got so happy and smiled and waved and introduced me to his wife. She was just as kind as he was. As I continued my walks in the morning until graduation, I always hoped to run into him again and see how he had been. I guess I grew attached to him or something. Unfortunately, I never saw him again after that, and from time to time he still crosses my mind. I hope he's okay. He used to be the highlight of my days when no one else could smile at me. Never underestimate the power of a genuine smile. When I was in college, there was a football player named Ben. Ben was a genuinely nice guy with a smile that could literally light up a room. It didn't matter how well he knew you, if you were in his orbit, he would give you this wonderful, soul-healing smile. It's been over a decade since I saw him last, but I can picture his face when I walked into the room. Thinking back on it, it still makes me smile. I hope he's doing well, and life hasn't dimmed his light. I was driving down south with my girlfriend. We have a blowout, so I put on the donut. The donut blows out while we're exiting the very next exit. So there we are, maybe 19 and at least 100 miles from anyone we know, at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking on what to do next, and probably looked like there was something wrong, so this older man offered to help. He drives me 20 or so minutes to a junkyard to get a cheap tire. Then he puts the tires on the rim with no more than a pry bar and some soapy water. Had a compressor on his truck, so he aired it up and I put it on. And we went on our way. I was drunk on my front porch one night. Me and a couple of friends were shooting the shit. I lived in a rough neighborhood at the time. A lot of homeless people, but most of them were decent people just down on their luck. Anyway, I see a homeless guy walking by my house and I holler out to him, "Yo man, you want a beer?" And he's like, "Man, hell yeah, thank you." So he comes up into the yard, I give him a beer and an extra one for the road. He starts going on about how he misses his son and how he never gets to see him anymore. We all sit and listen to him. He starts crying and says he bought his kid a bag of brand new Hanes socks and his mom wouldn't let him have them. Now I don't know what he did to deserve such treatment. Maybe he's a total son of a bitch and deserves to be where he is, maybe not, I have no idea. But what I do know is, whatever his past, he was having a very human moment at the time and he was super thankful, not just for the beer, but that me and my friends were listening and talking with him. Just letting him vent. Then he tries to give me the pack of socks he bought for his kid, which I vehemently refused. I was like, "Man, you keep them, your feet might get cold out there." But he wasn't hearing it. I mean, he refused to keep them. He flat out insisted that I take them. Eventually it became obvious he wasn't gonna take no for an answer and he wore me down and I accepted them. I guess he didn't need the reminder. He moved on and the party vibe was completely gone. We all just went inside and crashed. About a year ago I fell off the wagon and was back to drinking heavily every night. In about July, some random dude from the apartment complex said he was homeless but crashing on his buddy's couch for the weekend was walking by. I offered him some beer and smokes to keep me company since it was late night outside and I was spooked. He told me about his current life issues and how alone and unsupported he felt. We talked for hours. In November I happen upon him again, but he's dressed much nicer and has a bounce in his step. He explains that talking to me that night really helped him get his ass into gear. He gave my drunk ass that look, said, "If I can do it, you can. You're never alone." I'm nearly 2 months sober again with zero interest in picking up a bottle. I've officially started therapy, and have clear but manageable goals laid out to help me move forward. If he can do it, I can. Edit. Thank you all for the awards. The show of love and support has me in tears. Thank you all, for just being you. Never forget that you're not alone. Don't forget to take the time to care for yourself. Let yourself cry. Celebrate the little wins. There's always a silver lining, no matter how small, so notice it. If Nick can do it, we can too. I volunteer at a suicide hotline. Some guy, Bob, called in and we started talking about his home situation. Nothing absolutely horrendous, but he felt trapped and stressed and felt like he didn't have options. When people use language like that, our training says we should ask if they are thinking of suicide. Many volunteers have trouble with this. But if you mention suicide to someone who is not suicidal, it doesn't make them more suicidal, they just correct you and say, "No, I feel more like XYZ." So I asked Bob, "You're using a lot of language that people use when they're thinking of suicide. Are you thinking of suicide?" There was a pause. And then a huge wail. I could hear so much pain in his voice. I listened to him cry for at least 5 minutes. I've talked to people who had suicidal ideation before. It would be better if I were dead kind of thinking, but with no plan. Bob said yes, he was considering suicide, and we talked it out a bit more. After the pause and wail, that was the most concerned I've ever been for a human being outside my family. This wasn't just talking, I felt like he had already made up his mind about it, which was so scary. I only know what he told me. I know he was in his car parked somewhere. I know we got a few short laughs out of each other and we made some plans for him. Plans are important because it gives you a sense that if he has something to do, to plan for, he can't commit suicide. Anyway, he truly is a stranger. I don't know his real name or what he looks like. I just know his story, and I know that he was in immense pain that day. He had a particular kind of accent, and, whenever I meet someone with that same accent, I think of him and hope he's okay. When I was younger, I went grocery shopping with my dad. As we were walking, an old man stopped us and handed both me and my sister a shiny $1 coin. He told us that he wanted us to have them and to have a Merry Christmas. I never saw him again, but I think of that kind old man from time to time. Please like, comment, and subscribe.